Well, when I was a little kid, about 8 or 9 years old, I became fascinated by the 1930s monster movies in the United States. Dracula with Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney as the Wolfman and Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. And as a kid, I followed that thread from Frankenstein to Bride of Frankenstein to Frankenstein meets the Wolfman and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein's ghost of the Wolfman. It was just so fascinating to me to engage with those stories. Frankenstein in particular. And my goal is to see if you'll respond in unison with me to some things we know about the creature. What does he think of fire? Fire what? Fire bad. And do you remember what he thinks about friends? Friends good. It's kind of simple. And the difference between the caricature of Boris Karloff with his arms out chasing people saying fire bad and friends good, and what we heard in Mary Shelley's version this morning are pretty stunning. I think it's easy to forget the beauty and the pain that is behind a lot of those stories. But even the caricature, fire bad, friend good, says of this creature, I'm scared and I don't want to be alone. Mary Shelley, in her book, posits that being human and being in relationship go hand in hand. The entire book is this meditation on what it means to be a person and what it means to feel desperately alone. The creature in that passage has found himself just waking up, doesn't know who he is or where he's at. He's been living in a little cabin in the woods, a woodshed, hiding after having shown himself to one man who chases him out of his house, and he finds himself in a village where he's pelted with rocks and chased out with sticks and fire. In the little shack, what he does is watch this family. He watches them from the outside looking in at night, and he can see when they're kind to one another, when they're unkind to one another. He sees them with the pains of hunger in the winter, and so he stops stealing their food, clears the path for them. Conveniently, someone in the house is learning to read and write, so he gets to do the same by watching through the windows. Comes across a copy of Milton's Paradise Lost. What a great coincidence. The creature who's watching human relationships from the outside looking in and he knows, all I want in the world is to be in relationship with them, and if I did it, they would chase me in fear because I'm so disgusting and horrid. He immediately identifies with Adam in the story. And it's no wonder that the first story we have in the biblical scriptures is about people being cast out and feeling alone. People who, when they discover their mistakes, hide in shame. No wonder that's the first thing. He says the difference, though, between me and Adam is at least Adam's creator wanted to love him. Shelley's creature finds in his jacket pocket that he stole from the doctor who made him a piece of his journal that recounts that the worst day of his life was the day he created that being. So here we have this person looking from the outside in, trying to determine if being in relationship would make him more human. He feels the pain of separation and isolation and loneliness. And if modern research about what it means to be an American is true, a lot more of us feel like that creature in the woods looking in from the outside at real relationship than we would like to admit. A lot more of us feel like we are subsisting on the bare necessities of life, wishing desperately that someone would know us or love us or be a friend. Experts have named this a loneliness epidemic, and they use that medical language for a reason. It's not just America, it's also in most Western countries. In fact, the UK has offered up positions in their government to try and increase friendship. and decrease loneliness. A lot of insurance companies in the United States ran some studies over the last 5 or 10 years, and this is by insurance companies, said that the majority of Americans responded that no one on earth knows them well. This includes married people, people who say they have friends, people who are in churches, people who have a therapist. It included everybody. The majority of Americans said, no one knows me well, which if we're a subset of that population means half of you in this room. At least a third in one study and half in another showed that Americans, at least a third and half in another, identified as lonely in detrimental ways. It's pretty shocking. It's probably because of social isolation that's happening for reasons that I don't have to go into here. But it has these effects on our spiritual life that make us feel like we're watching what it means to be human from a distance. We are at our core, especially if the Unitarian Darwin is to be believed, social ape mammals who need other people to survive, let alone thrive. If we're left alone, we die. There are physical implications of loneliness that are being proved. In fact, one of the most recent studies showed that very severe loneliness has the same effect on your body as smoking about a pack of cigarettes a day. People who identify as lonely are more likely to have heart attacks, diabetes, have poor sleep, be overweight, suffer with all sorts of physical ailments, and have a lifespan that's much shorter than the rest of us. It's no wonder in the first chapter of Genesis that the first thing that the God Yahweh notices about the people is that thing doesn't need to be alone. Let's make it another one. There's also, on top of that, an existential risk and implication. People in those studies who identified as lonely were less likely to believe that their life had meaning and purpose, or that all life had meaning and purpose. They were related. If you said that you believed you were lonely, and the lonelier you got, the less meaningful you believed your life and all life are. I don't know if it's causal, but it's at least correlated. So the reason we're talking about that here is twofold. First, you asked us to. In this summer series where you lifted up questions, one of the most common this year and last year was about friendship. It was phrased in many ways. How do I make friends at church? Why is it so hard to make friends in church? Why do I not have many friends? And one that came up a couple times that really surprised us last year, why am I alone? It wasn't just one time. I'm wondering if the person who asked that question is here today. The reason we're talking about it in our church is because we fundamentally believe that right relationship is a saving reality. We don't tend to lift up many things as saving realities. Primarily, they're love, justice, and right relationship. Love and justice are actually just methods of right relationship. We come out of a tradition that says there's nothing you can think that's going to save you or humanity. There's nothing you can do to be right that's going to save you or humanity. There's not a club you can join or a donation you can make, a prayer you can say that will make you more holy, loved, alive, and saved than anybody else. The key is loving, just, peaceful, compassionate relationships. I can't get through a sermon without mentioning physics. And so I'll note that the physicist Carlo Rovelli, in his recent book, 7 Brief Lessons on Physics, states that everything we're learning about reality itself suggests that all reality is more relationship than object. Our electrons are shooting in and out of atoms to the degree that we can say that all of our molecules exist and don't exist and exist and don't exist. He said that all reality is more like a kiss than a stone, something that happens over and over and over, not something that exists. Our Christian friends do this by saying that God is not alone. God is multiple people in relationship with itself over all existence. For us, we've said we need each other. That whatever salvation we're going to achieve on this earth is going to happen together. That whatever heaven or hell awaits us, it's going to happen to us all. And so we better get to work. But I wonder, if we believe that religion isn't about knowing the right things or being the most socially conscious people or doing the most justice, if it really is about forming right relationships, are we structuring church in ways that match that? Are we using church in ways that match that? One of my first responses to why is it so hard to make friends at church is, are you treating it like a movie or a community? Because if you show up and sit in the back and laugh at the jokes and leave when it's over, it's very hard to make friends. Very hard to make friends. If you're not showing up or serving or getting in a small group or engaging people for coffee afterward, it's just impossible. But I also wonder about the structures of all religion, and ours included. The biggest thing we do together in this religion focused on right relationship, and we're doing it now, is you all kind of sitting silently, having one person say stuff to you. That's weird. And we have a vested interest in this system. But I think we should at least question it. If we believe that you won't be saved by knowing stuff, but by being in loving, just relationship with one another, are we forming this thing in a way that actually helps us find that salvation? When we talk about friendship, I know we're not talking about something superficial, although there's a reason why social media accounts call them friends and likes. Where's the pain point in our society? Are you my friend? Does someone like me? There's a reason for that. What I'm talking about is something deeper than that. What the poet David White talked about in that reading that Beth read to us this morning was that friendship is not proximity to other people. I'm sure you've all been with people that weren't your friends. Friendship is a relationship in his mind that lifts up the best parts of who we are and truly witnesses one another without leaving. It's people who see you for who you are, all of it, and don't leave. I wonder if you have any of those people. Statistically, half of you do. People who see you for all of who you are and don't leave. The writer Andrew Sullivan said that friendship is a unique relationship because, unlike almost any other, both parties have to agree that that's what's happening. You can employ someone you don't know. You can be employed by someone you don't know. Someone can save your life on an operating table in an emergency room who you've never met. You can be in love with someone and they don't know it. But you can't be someone's friend unless they say, yep, that's what's happening. We're friends. For me, I see this friendship business, as with most other things, as either an opportunity to connect with the realities that save life and make it whole or not. So the question we might want to ask of ourselves and the people we call friends and the people we want to be friends with is, when I'm with this person, am I seen? And does our relationship help me connect with what I believe makes life worth living? Everybody's got different answers there. For some people, what saves is love or justice or compassion or hope or creativity. The question to ask is, in this person's presence, am I experiencing what I believe makes life worth living? Or probably more importantly, am I in relationship with other people helping them connect with the things that I believe make life worth living? Or am I kind of just using people to feed my ego or be extremely needy or kind of wait for the next opportunity to talk? I'm just speaking for myself. The kind of friendship that connects with a holy, saving reality. The kind of relationship that gives you hope or gives you peace or gives you justice requires an extreme amount of grace. We're not good at grace for the most part as just people, but specifically Western people. Those kind of friendships require cultivating grace we're uncomfortable with. It means waking up in the morning and admitting that life is hard and people are imperfect and you're going to mess up a lot. David White said that friendship is a continual act of forgiveness. I see you and I'm not leaving. I still see you and I'm not leaving. Now, the question we always get when we talk about those kind of relationships as ministers is, oh, so that means there's no rules and anything goes and I have to forgive everybody for everything, and that's not true. There are obviously boundaries. We're talking about the mindset that says, I am willing to see other people for who they are and remain, which usually starts by forgiving and befriending your own shadow, the places where you're unable to befriend yourself. Feelings of inadequacy or greed or ego, the many mistakes we make. To befriend that is a good place to start. Second, it takes practice, like anything else. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. You can read the book about riding a bicycle, or you can read a bicycle. Being in holy, saving relationships that connect you directly with the realities that make life whole is a lot better done by doing it than by hearing sermons about it. My life has been saved many times over by intentional relationships. I'm friends with a very close group of ministerial colleagues. We formed during seminary, and we've been meeting once a month and once a year since 2004. Those people have saved my soul so many times. But in order to do that, it required rituals, intentionality. We meet for 2 hours once a month over the phone or a conference call or a video call, a yearly retreat that's at least 4 days long, in which we ritually engage in the same worship service, to bless one another, hear where we're pained, to pray for out loud and bless each other. And we have very specific expectations. You will show up. And it's only through that intentionality, that practice, that regularity, those rituals, those expectations, that those people have seen me in ways that I don't think anybody else has. And they stayed. Good for them and for me. That's what we're talking about. As progressives, we believe that no hand is going to come out of the sky and just save you. Nor are you supposed to do it all alone. Our task, at least in friendships terms, is to save each other. So pay attention to those parts of you that feel alone. Don't dismiss it. Don't put it away by turning on the television or binge watching Netflix or drinking enough to make that feeling go away or buying enough to make that feeling go away. When that feeling of isolation or pain or loneliness comes up, listen to it. It's pointing toward our need for meaningful relationship. The same feeling of isolation and pain also points toward our capacity to love and care for one another in meaningful ways. A friend, in a spiritual sense, is someone who sees your faults and remains with you, who sees what is beautiful in you and tries to bring it out, and who helps you connect with the realities that make your life worth living. As with most spiritual things, the way to get that is to be that. So our practice, if we do want to overcome these realities of loneliness, if we don't want to be like a creature staring from the outside looking in on what it means to be human, is to practice and cultivate our ability to have grace. To recognize that everybody you encounter is fighting a battle you will never understand. To deeply know what is worth living for. And when you see it in others, to point it out and lift it up. To remain with people who matter to you despite their mistakes. when you find something worth living for, to hold on with all you have, because nobody has to do this alone. May it be so, and amen.